Hey everybody, this is John Addison. My wife and I recently went with friends to Europe for a couple of week vacation, and we went to Normandy. I want to take some of the lessons I learned there and apply them to a historical leadership context. And so, the person that I focused very much on was Dwight Eisenhower. And I want to talk about some of the leadership lessons that he put in to make Operation Overlord, which is what that invasion was, successful. 160,000 men invaded that day. Over 10,000 died on the beaches alone. That's double the amount of people that we lost in the entire Iraq War. So just imagine that in just a few hours, double the amount that we lost in the Iraq War. And so I just want to talk to you a second about a handful of the things I think were his leadership characteristics. Number one, he loved and cared for his troops. One of his quotes was, "Morale is born of loyalty, patriotism, discipline, and efficiency, all of which breed confidence in self and in comrades. Morale is at one and the same time the strongest and most delicate growth. It withstands shocks, even disasters of the battlefield, but can be destroyed utterly by favoritism, neglect, and injustice." He said one of the hardest things for him was to stand in front of those troops and send them into this battle, knowing how many of them would be dead the next day. And he understood that when you go into a battle like that, it is your esprit de corps, it is your teamwork, it is your love for one another that's going to pull you through. Second, he was always optimistic. One of his statements is, "Optimism and pessimism are infectious and spread more rapidly from the head downward than any direction." Third, he didn't take himself too seriously. He managed the egos of others. He dealt with the egos of General Patton, who was a great general, but was a massive ego. General Bernard Montgomery from the British, massive, huge ego. But the reason he was effective was he could subjugate his own ego, and he really saw himself just as a normal GI. One of his statements at that time was, "Always take your job seriously, never yourself." He pulled big egos together for a common cause. Number four, he was always able to make sure the team understood the why behind the what. He got his men caught up into the larger cause. As the men were heading across the channel for the invasion, his voice came over the PA system and said, "Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you're about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven all these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine and the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world." He sold his people on the mission. And fifth, he took total responsibility for the success and the failure of probably one of the greatest enterprises in the history of humanity. After he made the decision to go, he went into his private office and he sat down and he wrote a note, which is preserved in the Library of Congress, that says, "In case of failure," kept it in his coat pocket. And what he wrote was a press release that said, "Our landings in the Cherbourg and Havre areas failed to gain a satisfactory foothold, and I have withdrawn the troops. My decision to attack at this time and this place was based upon the best information available. The troops, the air, the Navy did all that bravery and devotion could do. If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone." here was a man at the greatest moment of his life who knew that it might not succeed, but he was willing to take the blame. See, too often leaders, they want the credit, but when things don't go good, they don't want the blame. And so he sent men on this mission. It didn't go as planned. They landed in some of the wrong places. As he said later, the GI on the ground won the battle because they had to figure out how to get off that beach. And within a year, they freed Europe. See, real leadership, great leadership, takes guts, it takes commitment, it takes toughness. Most presidents for the rest of their life are known as President Bush, President Clinton, President Reagan. After he got out of office for the rest of his life, he was known as General Eisenhower, because that was his shining hour, his moment, when he used his skills to free Western civilization. So, most of us will never be called on to do anything that great. But man, we need to go out every day and put principles to work and be the best leader we can be. This is John Addison. See you at the top, because the bottom sure is crowded.